Welcome back, everybody, to the Early Edge. It is Thursday, and we are 1 day away from Major League Baseball returning to all of us. We are Lawrence Taylor days away. That's 56 from NFL kickoff. Detroit, Kansas City, 55-point fun total there. Speaking of totals, let's take a quick look at the recap screen from yesterday. My Aaron Rye, Lucas Herbert pick, well, it was a push. We woke up this morning. We realized they both tied at +1. I've got the other bet pending, right? We've got the Woodland play going on right now, so we'll have that on the recap screen tomorrow when we get a resolution there. By the way, I got a golf pick for you later, and it's from the Barbasol, so stay tuned for that. Martin Green, the guru. Well, we get a check mark there. And, of course, Maestro, very nice with his summer league capping. That was actually really, really good capping. Good on the Maestro. Speaking of the Maestro, he's always on HQ. Let's see who's on HQ today. Oh, there's the man, Matt Snyder Sniper. He is going to be on at 1 o'clock and then again at 6 o'clock with our favorite, Alan Bell. AB and Matt Snyder at 6, Matt Snyder at 1 o'clock. We're always on HQ. We're always doing this show, even if there's a, quote, alleged all-star break. So what do? We bring in the stars of the show right now, and we go right into our marquee matchups. We're going to pick World Series winners. I got Allie, Alabama. I got Danny Brasco. Give me a little 1-2. Give me a little jab. See, there you go. If you follow Danny on Instagram or Twitter, you've seen that many times. Wow, the little shoulder shimmy. Hey, that's my move on BPE Friday, Danny. I don't want you taking that from me. But here's what I want. And Allie, I'm actually going to start with you on Major League Baseball World Series odds. Listen, this is fun to speculate on. And we talked about some teams that might make the playoffs yesterday. So there's some teams on this list that you might like. For example, we talked about the Seattle Mariners. I talked about them yesterday. They're 45-1 to win the World Series. I think that's an interesting number. We had A-Mags on saying, hey, the Cubs could potentially win their division at somewhat long odds. They're 150-1 to win the World Series. My thought is, once you make the Major League Baseball playoffs, it can be anybody's game, especially if your rotation is good and healthy. With all of that said, Allie, any of these teams on this list that you like to win the World Series?
Yep, just going off this list, I think I'm going to kind of have to go with the square pick, and it's probably the Braves. But, I mean, Look at that record, 60-29. Really hard to look at that. But like you said, anything can happen once you get kind of in the playoffs. But I just think looking at their bullpen, they have like the third best bullpen ERA. And then, I mean, obviously Spencer Strider, he's just going to continue to dominate, I think, for the rest of the season. So I think the Braves, I'm going to have to go with there just because I don't feel like anyone else is really speaking to me like they are.
Yeah, I totally get that. Danny, I look at this and my instinct is to say the Braves too. Now, listen, the trade deadline is going to come up and we know teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees, they're just going to keep spending because you can do that in Major League Baseball, which I think is completely ridiculous. But with all of that said, I look at Houston. I think they're interesting, but they're in the same division as the Rangers. So I feel like a lot of people sort of cancel those two out and then they just defer to a team like the Dodgers or the Braves. I agree with Allie. I mean, to me, it's the Braves. And by the way, in the chat, hit the like button and tell us of these 6 teams. If you have a sneaky sleeper that you like, go ahead and put it in the chat. But which team do you like to win the World Series? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Danny, I lean with Allie here. The Braves look so well-rounded. Where are you at?
Yeah, I almost want to give a difference of opinion, but I find myself with you guys picking these Braves. They're such a complete team. And on Katie Mox's podcast, anchor and analyst here at SportsLine and on HQ, I picked the Braves at the beginning of the season plus 600. So why veer off course now? Still getting a pretty good number. Obviously, the Rays have been the juggernauts in the AL, but I feel maybe they've overachieved to an extent. I don't want to take anything away from that team. I just feel the offensive firepower is so much from the Braves. Look, Max Fried is still on the IL. Their bullpen has been really good. Jesse Chavez, another good bullpen arm, still in the IL. I mean, they have more pieces coming back. I wouldn't be surprised if they made moves at the deadline too. So I just can't look away from the Braves. I'm with you guys. They seem too strong.
Yeah, I see Nathan Pike in the chat. He says the Orioles. Man, I wish the Orioles, Danny, I'm going to kick it right back to you. If they just had another arm or two in their rotation, they would be so lethal. But they just don't have enough pitching, do they?
I don't know if they do. I mean, you're not, and you're also going to be tough to rely on arms like Kyle Gibson down the stretch of things here. That offense is really, really tough to beat. There's really few holes in that lineup. But again, the AL East, these divisions, a lot of them are going to cannibalize each other. Even though there is a clear-cut front runner, it's going to be a slog in the dog days of the summer here. So I think the Braves will have an easier path through than a lot of these other teams.
And everybody might know I'm an Orioles fan, but that part of the reason we talked about the rotation just now, part of the reason I like the Mariners to sneak into the wild card and to maybe, you speculate on them at 45-1, given what we talked about yesterday with their rotation and with what their bats have been doing as of late. That's why I even mentioned the Mariners at 45-1, because I do think they sneak in and probably take one of the wild card spots. And unfortunately, I think it might be the Orioles spot once it's all said and done after 162 games. Well, we go from 162 games to 16 games because we got a little NFL action to talk about. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
Get breaking news.
Big news coming out of the NFL today.
Highlights and instant reactions.
The largest final round comeback in Ford championship history. We're down to the final four.
I just want to take time to analyze greatness.
Talk winners and losers with a guy who's already a big winner.
CBS Sports HQ. It's all sports all day long.
Well, listen, we always like to be positive on this show, but let's introduce some negativity here. Which of these NFL teams is going to have the worst regular season record? We've got the Cardinals at plus 220, the Texans at plus 650, the Bucs led by Baker Mayfield at plus 750, the Rams and the Colts and Washington, ouch, at plus 1,000. Allie, I'm going right back to you. Which of these teams is going to have the worst regular season record?
Well, I got to be honest here. I'm not super smart at NFL, but I'm going to have to go with the Cardinals just because that's what Danny advised me to do.
Well, turns out you are smart at the NFL because that's probably the correct answer. And it's always good to follow Danny. Danny, before I kick it to you, it's hard to argue against what Allie just said. First of all, she said she just follows you, which is hard to argue with that. But it's also hard to argue with the Cardinals at plus 220. It seems... it seems like a short number, but then again, as bad as they are at the quarterback position, we know Kyler Murray's not coming back anytime soon and could conceivably sit out the whole season. I'm speculating there, but given when he's going to be healthy, what's the point of bringing him back if they're, 2-6 or, 2-7 in the middle of the season? So you're led by presumably Colt McCoy. All the units, offensive line, defensive line, secondaries, it's not good. And DeAndre Hopkins isn't there anymore. There's just not much to lean on. We still have James Conner there. He's kind of getting older. I don't see how you go away from the Cardinals, but is there any other team? First of all, is the Cardinals your answer? And in the chat, please let us know who you like here. Is there any other team you'd even think about?
I mean, I think you laid out a great case, and you have a lot of the points that I was going to make. Chad is with us, too. I mean, I think plus 220 feels like, it's a short number, but I'm wondering, is it a free 2-1 bet we're getting here? I mean, you laid it out. The quarterback situation is a mess. Now, new coach, Cliff Kingsbury, drafted Murray for this reason, to play with him, to set up a system for him. Kingsbury's gone, and that did not work out well at all. That was a joke. So now they bring in Gaines. I don't know how that's going to work out either for a quarterback that won't be around. Like you said, if it's going poorly, if they're 0-8, if they're 2-6, why jump back in that situation? What is there to gain for him? So maybe he sits the whole year out. The roster is poor on paper. They usually draft pretty poorly. Those picks I don't think are going to pan out this year and make a big impact. So I just don't see where any skill position or anything is jumping off on paper that says they'd be better than any of these even bottom barrel teams. So I think it's Cardinals' easy answer.
Yeah, you almost go through this sort of process of elimination. The Rams, I thought, were maybe in the conversation. Maybe Stafford doesn't stay healthy. Maybe Cooper Kupp doesn't stay healthy. And, when you look at their units, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, not great. But then again, Sean McVay is a pretty good coach. He's pretty creative on offense, regardless of who the quarterback is. I mean, he reminds me a little bit of Kyle Shanahan. I wouldn't put him in that class. But by the way, those two teams meet in week 6. So, I mean, to me, the winner of that game is probably, or I should say the loser of that game is probably going to be in a position to just mail in the rest of the season, because you got to figure both of those teams come into that game, with maybe 1 or 2 wins by their side, if that, on week 6. So something to think about. I'm surprised Washington is on that list, to be honest with you, because their defensive units, front seven, and even their secondary, it's decent. The Colts, that kind of surprises me a little bit, but you got Richardson or Minshew at the quarterback position. So I understand all of that. And the Buccaneers, I think, would be the other answer for me. I could see, it's not necessarily a negative on Baker Mayfield, but I could see that team just kind of collapsing because they weren't very good last year either. The only thing going for the Bucs is that their division is such a division where there are teams that they can beat on a pretty routine basis, I think. So I think that's why you go back to the Arizona Cardinals by process of elimination. You say, I think, even the Texans, I think they outwin the Arizona Cardinals. All right. That is our NFL segment. By the way, we talked about it yesterday on this very show. You can go to SportsLine right now. We are slow rolling win totals. We are slow rolling futures every single day. Guys like the Maestro, RJ White, Prop Stars. We are putting futures out there. So go to the site. There's so much content on the site that I think sometimes we reduce this thing to like just picks on the early edge. But I got to tell you, you will immerse yourself for hours if you really want to on SportsLine, on the app, at the.com. So please definitely visit that. Okay, let's finally visit our picks. Listen, it's sort of a light day, obviously, for obvious reasons, but we have a pick here and there. Maybe it's for tomorrow, maybe it's for Saturday, maybe it's for later today, but we have a few to give out. But before we do that, let's hear a message from our partners.
When you're the FedEx Cup champion, your name's on this trophy forever. This is our season-long race. This is the sought-after trophy when we tee it up, the first event of the season that you think about.
3 tournaments with the world's best golfers battling for the tour's toughest trophy to win, the FedEx Cup. The playoffs begin August 12th on CBS.
I see in the chat, people are saying, I see Matt saying people are sleeping on Sam Howell. I don't know about that. I really don't. I've never been really a Sam Howell guy at North Carolina. He was really a dude a few years ago, and then his stock just kind of went down. I do think he's in that sort of Taylor Heineke mold, which I don't think is a bad thing at all. So I think Sam Howell will be fine. Again, I'm surprised Washington made that list. I'm a little offended.
I felt disrespectful. I don't think they deserve to be on that list. They got a lot of good, gritty defenders. I like the makeup of that team. B-Rob, if he's still there, I mean, that's a decent team.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. They've got okay running backs. They've got good receivers. The quarterback is a big question. Offensive line is kind of a question, but the defense is there. So I think they're going to win some games. Their total, by the way, is 6.5. And for those of you that don't know, the win total for the Arizona Cardinals is 4.5. So, and every other team on the list that we just saw was 6.5 or higher, just so everybody knows. So Vegas also thinks Arizona is definitely going to be the lowest win total. 4.5.
Yeah, and I bet that actually at a flat total of 5, and it looks like it's on the move down. So yikes. I mean, I think that's likely to happen.
That's right. All right. Well, let's shift to baseball. We don't have any baseball today, but we've got a lot of baseball tomorrow. So that's something you can look forward to. Big Pick Energy Friday. We're going to have, obviously, we're going to have Chip. We're going to have the regular crew there, and we are going to have some baseball picks for sure, some golf picks as well. But Allie, you've got a baseball pick that we need to pay attention to, especially for when this precise line comes out. Maybe tomorrow morning, maybe later tonight. We'll see what happens. But Allie, tell us about your pick.
Yep. So I'm going to go with the Brewers first 5 on the money line here. I mean, I know the full game's up. I just think it's worth waiting for that first 5. Could be up soon. Who knows? But just looking at Graham Ashcraft, he's 2-5, and he has a 7.95 ERA and a 1.65 WHIP. But against the Brewers last month, he gave up 10 earned runs in 4 innings. So I definitely don't think he's going to do like worse than that. But I really don't see him having a great game, especially against someone like Corbin Burns, who had been pretty solid, and the Brewers won both of his starts against the Reds this season. So I think just looking at that first 5 line, I'm going to have to go with the Brewers here. I'll keep you updated on Twitter and anything for tomorrow, just to make sure that line is still good. But I just overall think that it's a little bit short just based on that minus 115 money line that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. It shouldn't be too much more severe than what we're seeing on the money line right now. So that's actually a really, really good find. First 5, certainly something near and dear to my heart. Hopefully I'll have a first 5 for everybody tomorrow as well. I'll get to my pick now. It's funny. Bradley mentions in the chat, we pushed the Aaron Rye bet, and Bradley Jacobs mentions in the chat, Aaron Rye on the last hole missed a 4-footer, which we obviously would have won if he makes it. So, those things happen. We probably should have won that bet, but we pushed it. No big deal. We've got Woodland out on the course right now, but some of you may not know that there's sort of a tournament in tandem with the Scottish Open. It's over on stateside, and it started, at the regular time, but the second half of the golfers haven't gone out yet. So I actually have a pick for the Barbasol Championship, which this pick is going to start, I think, at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. And it's Lucas Glover plus 100 over Vincent Norman. Now, some of you might look at this and you might say, well, see, on the early wedge, I saw that you had 3 outrights. And one of those 3 outrights was Vincent Norman. So what gives here? Well, here's the thing. I think Vincent Norman can do just fine today. I think both Lucas Glover and Vincent Norman can have good days during day one. The problem is, because of the rainy conditions, what you have is preferred lies today. Lift, clean, in place. What that is really is, if you're in the fairway, if you're in the closely mown areas, you can lift your ball, wipe off the mud, do all of those things that really give you an advantage. If you're in the rough, you cannot do that. You're not allowed to do that when you have preferred lies. Well, Lucas Glover is the far more accurate off-the-tee golfer than Vincent Norman. So while I think Vincent Norman may be okay, and he's not extremely inaccurate, he's just not as accurate as Lucas Glover. So you take the accuracy of Glover with lift, clean, in place in mind, and you take the putter of Glover, which has been really, really good. I like this number as a dog, plus 100 over Vincent Norman. You can find this one at FanDuel, and at DraftKings, it's minus 115 both ways. I still like it there. I don't think you'll find anything more than minus 115. It won't be minus 120. It'll either be somewhere between plus 100 and minus 115. So go Lucas Glover here. I still believe in my Vincent Norman outright. I think both of them can do well today, but it's the lift, clean, in place preferred lies that have me on Lucas Glover for round one specifically. By the way, if you follow me on Twitter, I had some first-round leaders tweeted out last night for the Barbasol. A few of them are actually in the conversation, so it's not something I gave out on the early wedge because I hadn't really looked at it yet. I gave only outrights on the early wedge when it comes to that secondary Barbasol tournament, but follow me on Twitter because hopefully one of these first-round leaders cashes. It might not, obviously, but I sometimes put some secondary plays on my Twitter, so keep that in mind. All right, that's golf. If you have any questions about that, put it in the chat. Danny, I'm starting to get fired up. I'm starting to hear the Rocky music, and that can only mean one thing. It means it's time for you to give out some picks.
So, yeah, first of all, I got to say, sharp angle on that golf best. Lift, clean, in place, preferred. I'm not a golf bettor, but I want to tail that. I mean, I like what you're cooking up over there. So credit where credit's due. Let's get into some UFC picks for a Fight Night card this Saturday coming up for you guys. And coming off an insane UFC 290 card, this one a lot less noteworthy, a lot less fighters are going to recognize, but still some good matchups. And let's get into a few. For this first one, I'm taking Francisco Prado to beat Ottman Azaitar, and do not blink for this fight on the prelims because both guys are likely to get a first-round knockout. I think it'll be Prado that gets it done. They both have heavy hands and will throw down, meet in the middle, and likely brawl. I think that Azaitar is round one or bust. I think if he doesn't get the early knockout, he's going to gas out. Prado, 21-year-old prospect coming off a debut loss on short notice. Much more winnable matchup here, and it's interesting to see him as the favorite here. So I think the young kid can take a punch better than Azaitar in a brawl. I say he wins and ends up as the last man standing. Give me Prado, and I'll probably end up taking him by knockout as well when props come out on that fight. Next up, I'm going with an underdog here, and this one is fun to back. It's Chelsea Chandler at plus 120, and she's repping the 209 with Nate Diaz out of Stockton, California. We know them for their grittiness, their toughness, just the ferocity that those 209 fighters bring. And Chelsea Chandler certainly has that in her identity. She's got heavy hands, and she's a big fighter. This fight against Norma Dumont is at featherweight, women's featherweight. It's kind of a non-existent division at 145. But I like it for Chandler because she fights big. She's got a big physique, and she really, once she gets pressure and on top of you, she really makes her opponents feel that size. So I feel like Chandler can do that to Dumont. Look, this line is short. Dumont is a good UFC fighter. She has some quality wins, yet she's just a minus 140 favorite. I would have expected her to see minus 200 or more. So Chandler at plus 120, making me raise some eyebrows here. I think the tough, gritty fighter Chandler picks up a big win in her young UFC career. And let's close it out with a two-leg parlay here. This is a spot that I like in UFC for both of these young fighters that I'm going to parlay together. It's a good young fighter who lost in their short notice debut against a tough competition, did the UFC a favor in stepping in, and now gets a much more winnable matchup here. I feel like that's what Evan Elder and Melquizael Costa both have here in this fight. Melquizael, I'm going to call him Melky. Shout out Melky Cabrera, old Yankee. Evan Elder, good cardio, good wrestler, toughness. I think he's got a much more winnable matchup there. Here, I think he brings those three things to get it done. And Melquizael Costa, watch out for Melky's grappling, very slick. His opponent's got a kind of basic MMA boxing game. I think Melky does more with the kicks, with the grappling, gets it done, and they pick up two big wins in their young career. So there's a few UFC picks for this Saturday's Fight Night card, headlined by Holly Holm, still fighting at 41 years old, passing on a bet in the main event. Not really interested in betting on 41-year-old fighters. Tough to call those sometimes. So there's some takes for UFC.
Wow, that's an old school name that I recognize, Danny. Let me ask
Milkman.
Yeah, we've got a question in the chat from CapQuest. He says, ask Brasco, Spence or Crawford. Any opinion there?
Bud Crawford all day. I mean, that's going to be an amazing fight. That's the fight of the century, but it's Crawford all day.
Is that on the Saturday card? What am I missing?
No, that's a big boxing fight that's coming up. That's been in the works for a long time, basically to settle a score that's been many, many years in the making.
Oh, wow. You should be promoting that fight. I'm already electrified by it. Good question from CapQuest. Appreciate that. Everybody, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do that for me. By the way, somebody asked about Coach. No, he's just out for the week. I think somebody asked, hey, is Coach good? Coach is very good. He's just out for the week, so I'm taking over. I hope that's okay with you. I'll be here tomorrow as well. Maybe you'll see me hosting on Sunday, but you'll see Coach back next week for sure. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's recap screen time. Let's see what our picks are for today and some for tomorrow and Saturday as well. We've got the Barbasol Championship round 1 2-ball. This goes off in about 2 hours. Lucas Glover at plus money, plus 100 over Vincent Norman, who, again, I do like in this tournament. I just don't like him today against Lucas Glover. Allie, she's got the Brewers' first 5 money line. That's tomorrow. The first 5 will be out, but it's probably not going to be a prohibitive price, as she told you, due to what the money line price is for the full game right now. And Danny Brasco has Francisco Prado money line minus 115, not Chelsea Handler, but Chelsea Chandler at plus 120, and a money line parlay with Evan Elder and Melquizel Costa. I should have just gone with the last name there, but I am just on the difficulty level. I want to try everything. That's a money line parlay at minus 101. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the damage we can do today on this Thursday. We're back to kind of all the sports tomorrow. And don't forget, check out SportsLine. We may put up Wimbledon bets earlier than this show, and so they don't go out on this show, but we have Wimbledon bets in the app. We have on the analysis tab, we might have some WNBA bets there. So there's a lot to consume, not just on this show, but on the SportsLine app. But that's all the damage we can do today. So you know what's next. You've got your marching orders. Let's take all of these tickets straight, it's over here, to the pay window for Allie, for Danny Brasco, and for Jake the Snake on the 1s and 2s and 14s and 15s. I am the counselor, and we rest our case.